begin recording. So hey everybody, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm really looking forward to this training with you today. I get really excited talking about ChatGPT, and I'm incredibly excited that it sounds like many of the teammates on the call are already using it in their daily lives. And I'm also excited to chat with a trauma healing team. I've taught this training probably about 20 times now to different companies like law firms, to government offices, to universities, but I've never chatted with a trauma healing center. And so this will be my first time sharing this with a team like yourselves. So I hope that I've created some examples that can help you maybe think about things a little bit differently. And we'll walk through that today. So briefly, a little bit about myself. So my name is Robert Solano, and I'm actually a full-time soldier in the United States Army. And one of the reasons why I'm excited to chat with the Trauma Healing Accelerated is because as an Army soldier for the past 20 years, I have experienced trauma many times, right? Like I've been deployed to combat. I've lost friends that have died in combat. I've seen my friends in a helicopter burned alive in some cases, and I know many other people have dealt with trauma in the military as well. So if I can help you perform your job better to provide trauma healing for more people, I think that is a tremendous worthy cause, and I'm really excited to share that with you. Now, in addition to being an Army officer, I'm also a coach, and in 2 years I'll retire from the Army, and I plan to launch my coaching business. And so I've offered this training on ChatGPT to help kind of establish myself as a coach. And this training, I think I maybe met Amelia through Facebook, but this training is free. I just like talking about this topic. And the only catch is at the end of the training, I may ask you to write a Google review for me if you enjoyed it, but otherwise, this is free training that I'm offering. I've been working in developing artificial intelligence technology for the past 10 years or so, managing programs with different companies like Palantir Technology or at the Army's AI Center. And the way I came about ChatGPT is I'm also an author. And around December timeframe, I used ChatGPT to write a book. I wrote a children's book. It's available on Amazon. I used ChatGPT to write it. But in doing that, I very quickly realized that there's tremendous potential for this technology beyond just writing a book. All aspects of a business, whether it's coding, writing emails, marketing, I think that if you do any type of writing in your job, there's potential to use ChatGPT to help you. Now, I will briefly go through some basics of ChatGPT as if there may be someone on the line that has never used it before. Or if you record this, or if you share this recording in the future with someone that has never used it before, I want to make sure that anyone that sees this in the future knows how to access the system from basics up to advanced. So I'll kind of cover some basics. It'll take me about 5 minutes, and then we'll go into some advanced topics. And the training today, it's example based, so I will show you different examples to kind of maybe help you think about better ways to use it if you are using ChatGPT. Hopefully there's something that you can take away in the future. So real quick, before I jump in though, I want to briefly talk about what is ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is essentially a computer program. It's a computer software, and it's a type of software in the field of artificial intelligence. And more specifically, it's a type of software called a large language model. Now, if you have an iPhone or Gmail and you've ever started typing and the iPhone tries to give you 3 words to finish your sentence, or Gmail tries to finish the sentence for you, well, those are simple language models. ChatGPT is very similar, except instead of being able to finish a sentence, ChatGPT can complete whole entire essays for you based upon a simple prompt. Now, The reason that it's become so hot in the press is because ChatGPT became publicly available at the end of November 2022. Within a week of its release, it had over 1 million users. And within 2 months of its release, it had 100 million users. To put it in comparison, it took Facebook 4.5 years to get to 100 million users. It took TikTok 9 months to get to 100 million users. So to get to 100 million in 2 months makes ChatGPT the fastest growing consumer product of all time. Nothing else comes close. It was developed by a company called OpenAI, which was founded in 2015. And over the past years, OpenAI has given ChatGPT estimated to be about 300 billion words of text to train it on human language. And that text comes from books, articles, websites, Facebook, Twitter, anywhere that this company could get text, it had fed it into ChatGPT. I think right now ChatGPT knows about 13 different languages. So it is mostly trained on English, but it also knows Spanish, Russian, German, and quite a few other languages as well. Huge investments. Microsoft has invested about $10 billion into this technology. And if you use a Microsoft product, you will likely see this in Microsoft Word or Outlook in the near future. Google, Facebook, and other companies are also developing similar technology. So even if you don't use ChatGPT on a daily basis, in the near future, you will likely see similar technology in your Google products or your iPhone or Facebook or any other software products. So that's the background. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right in. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Give me one moment. Okay, can someone verbally confirm that they can see my Google Chrome window? I see a thumbs up from Amy. Thank you. All right. Yeah. So again, if you've never used ChatGPT, the easiest way to get to it is to just simply Google ChatGPT, and likely the first website that pops up is this website, which is openai.com/blog/ChatGPT. If you try ChatGPT, you can log in with a Gmail account, or if you don't have a Gmail account, you can create a username or password. And within a few seconds, you can access ChatGPT, which looks like the screen in front of you. Quickly orient you to the screen. On the left-hand side, there's a history of all my previous discussions with ChatGPT or my chats. I use the paid version of ChatGPT, which is called ChatGPT Plus. The paid version costs $20 a month. And what that allows me to do is it gives me access to ChatGPT when they are busy and when their servers are crowded. I get preference to the system over people with the free version. Additionally, I can also access version 4, which is more advanced. It can handle more complex topics. It has a little bit longer word count that you could input into it. And it's just in general a little bit smarter than the free version, which is 3.5. If you are new to ChatGPT and you try to create an account, and use the free version, and you get an error message saying that you can't access it because there's too much traffic, well, I recommend, just try at a later time in the day when less people are on, and usually that works. So I'm going to go through some pretty basic examples and build up to some more advanced examples. And so within ChatGPT, you can ask ChatGPT questions in the text prompt below. And, I have a young daughter that's just learning how to talk, and she may at some point in the future ask me, like, what is trauma? A 5-year-old may not understand what trauma is. So you can ask ChatGPT to explain what is trauma. And within a few seconds, ChatGPT will write a description of what is trauma. You can see it's talking about PTSD and extreme fear and helplessness and stuff like that. Well, if you're, let's say, Amelia, I think the CEO of your company and founder, well, she might want to explain trauma from a medical perspective, as if she's the board certified doctor that she is. Well, you can ask ChatGPT to rewrite the same response like that board certified doctor, and ChatGPT will rewrite the same response using a little more complex language. Now, the 2 points I want to make, the first off is that ChatGPT is not referencing a website to get this information. There's no Wikipedia page that it's going to. It knows this information based upon the 300 billion words that it was trained on. And so you may ask the same exact question and get a completely different response, just as you would ask a person what is trauma, and every person will have a completely different response. The other point is that within a chat, ChatGPT has a certain amount of memory. So when I asked it to rewrite the same response like a doctor, I didn't have to say, explain what trauma is like a doctor. I just said, rewrite the same response. And it knew, based upon our previous conversation, that I was still talking about trauma. Now, of course, my 5-year-old daughter doesn't necessarily need to know, what trauma is like a board, like I was a board certified doctor. But let's say I have a 4-year-old child that's a foster child that may have experienced some trauma in their early years. And I think this is actually Amelia's story from what I've read online. So I could ask ChatGPT to rewrite the same response like I was a 4-year-old. And now ChatGPT has used simpler language that a 4-year-old would understand. And I use this example to illustrate how you can take, in some cases, some very complex topics and simplify them for a more common audience. So let's move on, and I'll hit a new chat to clear the memory. And then preparing for this session, one of the things that I asked ChatGPT was write a 60-minute agenda for a training session to a trauma healing center, like your company. And within a few seconds, ChatGPT has built out an agenda for a training session that I use to help develop my thoughts and to develop the flow of this training. Now, any one of these topics, I can expand in more detail. So for example, for use cases and examples, if I want to expand these first three, well, I can copy that section and say, expand this section, include talking points and PowerPoint bullets. Paste that specific section I wanted to expand. And if I scroll down, now I can see that ChatGPT has expanded that section to include talking points and PowerPoint bullets that I can build out training in the future. So my wife owns a law firm. We practice immigration law, so we actually have clients from the Philippines and all over the world. And we do training every week. We do training with our paralegals and our sales team. And using ChatGPT to help build out that training significantly improved our ability to do training faster and more effectively. Now, one of the things you can also do is I can also say, write a calendar invite to my team, inviting them to this training by the incredible, exceptional Robert Solano. That's me. And now ChatGPT has written out a email that I can, put into a Outlook invite and send out to the team. Now, normally this email would have taken me at least 30 minutes to, write all these details and to formulate my thoughts. And now within a few seconds, I have this email. Now, a few points. when you copy and paste this over to a Word document or some other type of document, it frequently copies with some type of formatting. And so the way around that formatting is when you copy it, you can right click copy, and when you paste it into Word or Outlook, I would right click and hit paste as text or paste without formatting so that you're not copying that formatting over. All right. A few kind of notes and warnings and cautions. The first one is if you're using ChatGPT for research, the memory currently stops at 2021. So all the training that they did to build this system all ended in 2021. So if you're asking it for current events, it may not know, current events in the world because it doesn't have any memory beyond that. Additionally, anything that you put into ChatGPT can be used by the company in the future for building the next software version. So if you have any type of private client information, any health information, anything that you would not share with the public, you should not put it in ChatGPT because this system is not, certified or secure for personal identifiable information or health information. Now there are some ways around it. You can, change the patient's name or change some details about the patient so that you don't have their personal information, but you should be careful of sharing any type of personal information or proprietary business information in ChatGPT. Let's see. So moving down, I understand that lots of your staff is in the Philippines. As my wife's immigration law firm, lots of her staff is in Mexico. So I understand that sometimes when working with virtual assistants in foreign countries, at least for us, English is frequently not their first language. Usually Spanish is their first language and English is their second language. But sometimes we ask them to write in English all the time. Our staff has to be bilingual. But frequently they may spell things wrong or not use proper grammar. So in this case, I've exaggerated quite a lot, but I've assumed I've asked the virtual assistant to write a letter on behalf of Amelia to this doctor named John Smith, inviting John Smith to speak with me at a conference called the South by Southwest Conference. And so within this email, there's lots of grammar mistakes. There's lots of spelling mistakes. It's, you can see that health is spelled wrong. It's not a properly proofread email that the CEO would send out. And so what you can do in ChatGPT is you can ask ChatGPT to proofread this. And when ChatGPT proofreads, it generally still keeps the same sentence structure. It doesn't really move any of the sentences around, but it corrects some of the spelling and some of the basic grammatical errors. Now, you could alternately say, rewrite the previous response to be clearer. And when you ask ChatGPT to rewrite something, it will generally move sentence structure around to be clearer or to get whatever desire you want out of it. Now, alternatively, I think a better way to approach it is to have an understanding of the style or tone that you want in the output. And so in this case, what I've asked ChatGPT to do is rewrite the email like a compassionate, down-to-earth, empowered, feminine CEO. Now, I encourage you to experiment, experiment with different language, experiment with, asking for formal writing, informal writing, and really figure out the style that works best for you. But once you figure out that style, I encourage you to, use it to get better results. And, in this case, I've said to rewrite like this compassionate, empowered CEO. And the result is a little more warmer. It's a little more personal. For example, I would be honored if you would join me for this upcoming panel at South by Southwest conference. Warm regards, Dr. Amy Appigian. I'm sorry, I don't know how to properly say her last name. So, if I could offer you one piece of advice, I would say when you're playing with ChatGPT, really think about what adjectives you want to describe the output you want. I'll take a pause there. Any questions so far?
Yeah, I do have, Robert. Actually, I'm using ChatGPT, but the playground environment.
Okay.
So yeah, in regard with the result, is there a difference between that environment between the playground environment? Because in the playground environment, I'm able to like modify how the chat GPT will respond. Like there's a Da Vinci and the others. Yeah. So
yeah, I haven't messed around a lot with the playground environment, so I don't know specifically. There are different what they call models, right? So in this environment, they call them ChatGPT 3.5 and ChatGPT 4.0. I would have to Google and see which Da Vinci model is correlated with version 3.5, and I think I've looked that up in the past. I'm not sure. I can ask ChatGPT. Let's see if ChatGPT knows which OpenAI Da Vinci model is associated with ChatGPT 4.0. And it may not, sometimes it doesn't really know the details about itself. And it looks like in this case, it may not know which version it is. But I think if you look at the OpenAI documentation, you should be able to kind of correlate which Da Vinci version is associated with this. I just don't know that information off the top of my head.
how about that environment, Robert? What mode or model does it uses? Does it have like a default?
Yeah. So in this particular environment, which is from the website chat.openai.com, they just call it version 3.5 or version 4. They don't have an associated, like they don't tell you what the associated Da Vinci model is. I would have to look that up in the OpenAI documentation, which I can do after this, and I could email back to you. But normally there is and there's Da Vinci isn't the only model, but I think Da Vinci is the one specifically used for chat normally. But I can look that up and kind of get back to you on that one.
Yeah, because there are models that are like Curry. It is lesser accuracy versus Da Vinci. However, there's ADA or ADA, which can provide you faster results, but has the least accuracy.
Yeah.
So and as well as the grammar, there are grammar errors and other models. Da Vinci would be the best to use. In regard with that environment that you're using, does it use or does it have a default model? Does it default into the Da Vinci if we're using a premium account?
Yeah, I don't know. it just says I mean, the default for the free version is 3.5, and the paid version, you can select version 4. I have to look that up to get back to you to see what model correlates closest with these other versions.
And one more question, sorry, Robert.
Please
But
go ahead.
you mentioned that, yeah, you mentioned that the memory is only until 2021. I mean, the Chat GPT memory. So, when are you going to upgrade the Chat GPT memory to a latest or a later version?
Yeah, I've listened to a few interviews with the CEO of the company, and the CEO hasn't specified when they're going to release the newest version. The version 4 is the most current version in this system, in this application, and I think they said that they stopped training this one in August of 2022. Now that's when they kind of like came to the final version of it. I don't know when the information that they fed to it, from what I understand, ended in 2021. But the company, at least I have not seen the company advertise when they're going to release the next version, whether that's version 4.5 or version 5. I haven't seen them advertise that, so I don't know. But if so there are other companies that use ChatGPT in their applications, and Microsoft is one of them. Microsoft is their biggest investor. So the version of Microsoft search engine, which is called Bing, I don't know if they fully released it yet, but the version that they've beta released incorporates ChatGPT within the search engine. So the search engine uses ChatGPT, but it combines it with current website URLs. So, if you're using Bing, or if you're using another service that uses ChatGPT behind the scenes, other companies have incorporated ways to, get current information and combine that with ChatGPT's natural language ability. But this system doesn't have access to any of those, resources that the Microsoft search engines would.
I also have a question, Robert.
Please go ahead.
Thanks. So I wanted to ask, like how many words would be
Yeah,
the limitation for ChatGPT to summarize, let's say, a blog or an article? Because I
yeah,
had an experience where I asked ChatGPT to summarize a certain, a transcript, and it was too long. I recognize that, and it's
yep.
not allowed me to do that. So
Yeah. So ChatGPT doesn't have a word limit per se. Well, it doesn't use that terminology. So ChatGPT uses a different terminology, and I think they're called tokens. But basically, every word that you put into ChatGPT, it divides the words into different chunks based upon its system. And there's a limit to how many of these tokens you can put. And one of the unique things, though, is that because the way the software is developed, the token limit is not for the input or the output, it's for the input and output combined. So you may have a long input, but only ask it like a yes or no question, and that will be less tokens than if you had a long input and asked it, read this 1,000-page, 1,000-word essay and output another 1,000-word essay. Well, that would be like a 2,000-word input and output, and all 2,000 words would go against your limit. So that was probably more complex than it had to be. In summary, what I've found is that the free version of ChatGPT, version 3.5, usually has a limit of between 2 and 3,000 words for the input and output combined. The paid version, which is version 4, that word limit usually is between 3,000 and 4,000 words, input and output combined. That's generally what I've seen. I know that's a big gap, but because of the way it breaks up the words into tokens, everything you input will have a different number of tokens based upon word count. It just doesn't use that same kind of terminology for its system. So I hope that helped. And I think at the end of the day, really, I've encountered that same problem. And I mean, I can show you an example real quick because I did one last night. So I took this roadmap to healing, which is kind of like the free download that people get from your website. If you tell ChatGPT to summarize it and then paste it, so I just pasted all the text straight in, all 21 pages of it. Well, actually it worked. I wasn't expecting that.
Sorry to butt in, Robert, but
Yeah,
actually
please.
that error message that Gracie mentioned, sometimes it also appeared even in a shorter version of inquiry.
Yeah, I mean, I did this same exact example where I asked it to summarize this document. I did this last night and I got error message saying that it was too long. And I mean, I just did it again and it actually summarized it. So, I think it also depends a little bit on, how many servers are available, how much traffic there is. There's quite a lot of different factors. I was expecting to get that error with this. I mean, this is a lot of text that I assumed would, exceed its limit. So I was kind of surprised by that. I think you just need to experiment until you kind of figure out what the limit is, and don't be surprised if the limit changes in the future.
Can I just share something? Also,
Please.
here's my experience with regards to that error. So I'm using the premium account, the one John is talking about, the Da Vinci. So when I input something that is so too long, so I agree with you, Robert. It is a combination of the input and the output. So when I put something that is too long, and then the reply would cut off half
Yeah.
like in like one paragraph only, then what I would usually do is to remove some of my input, and then the output would continue to populate. So that's what is
Yeah.
happening. So
Yeah.
it would continue and complete the answers for me.
Yeah, that is another thing that happens. I'm seeing if I can get it to happen here. Um, so yeah, I mean, I couldn't get it to happen here. Let me try one more time. Write a 20,000 word book chapter based upon this handout. Okay, it should not be able to do this, but let's see what it does. Yeah, so it gave me the outline. Let's see. All right, if I can't break it this time, I'll just have to move on. But I think essentially is what the example that someone said is, if you ask for a long output, frequently it will just stop writing mid-sentence. And the way around that is you can just ask it to continue, or just ask it to finish writing the article, and it will pick up right where it left off in the next output and continue on with that story. But sometimes it won't even try. Sometimes it will just say, your input is too long, I can't answer, and just give you an error message. And in that case, you need to cut it into pieces and chunks and kind of work it in chunks. But as you experiment, I think you'll encounter those different issues and figure out the best way to work through them. I want to transition to talking about marketing for a little bit, because I think maybe there's a few marketers online. At least that's what John told me before this meeting. So I want to show you a few examples of how you can use this for marketing. So in this example, I've asked it to build out an ideal client avatar for, oh, actually, hold on, I'm getting ahead of myself. I copied the wrong. So I have a Word document off to the side that you can't see, where I did these examples yesterday. And so I'm copying and pasting the examples in instead of typing them each time. But in this case, I've asked it to write an ideal client avatar, assuming that we want to do a new marketing campaign targeting transitioning military service members. So military members who maybe experienced trauma while they're in the service, who are transitioning to the civilian life. Maybe we think that they're a good client, so we want ChatGPT to develop an ideal client avatar. And so in this case, it kind of has developed this client, which it's named Jason, the transitioning warrior, and it's built out this avatar for who Jason is. And if we agree with this avatar as our ideal client, we can use this avatar for targeted Facebook marketing or social media marketing, so that we kind of have this person in mind as we're building our campaigns. So with that, now that we have this avatar for Jason, we can ask ChatGPT to help us build a Facebook marketing campaign. And if you've never used Facebook marketing, the way you build campaigns is you can select interest areas for the clients that you want to target. And so, frequently it's, you have to brainstorm, say, okay, well, what type of magazines do military people like, or what are their hobbies or interests, or, kind of, it's a very, detailed process to brainstorm these interest areas. Well, ChatGPT can speed that up. Simply, you can just ask ChatGPT for the interest areas, and now it's kind of, giving you some different interest areas as well. And then, finally, ChatGPT can help you actually write the ads as well. And so in this example, I've told ChatGPT to write 2 different Facebook ads that we can A/B test against each other. I want one ad in a serious tone and one ad in a humorous tone. And if I was building Facebook campaigns, I would run both of those ads side by side and see which one gets the more clicks, the more likes, the more signups. And ChatGPT can write those ads for you as well. And so, in this case, it's written 2. The funny one is, unlock your path to healing, transform trauma into resilience. And then the second one, the humorous one, is from battle ready to resilient ready, healing with a twist. Now this is the free version. I think if you really want to develop really good ads, I would recommend using the paid version, which is version 4. I think you just get kind of better results with the paid version. And then, continuing along this theme, let's say that you have the Facebook ad built out and they enter your sales funnel. So let's say that you get an email address or a phone number from them, but they haven't committed to buying the course yet. Well, you can ask ChatGPT to build a drip campaign for you. And in this case, I've asked ChatGPT to build a text message drip campaign. And so I've asked it to write 10 follow-up text messages to send to this client or potential client to get them to sign up and buy our online course. And you can see it's included what days, even what time of day to send these follow-up emails. And you can program all these within your company's CRM software, whatever CRM software you use. All right. So, continuing along with the marketing theme, I have a blog post. I think your company has a blog post as well. I know they do because I read it last night. So another technique that I have used is, I feel like I have a certain writing style, and I like it when ChatGPT emulates my writing style in things that it writes. And so I looked at this blog post on early childhood attachment trauma, and what I've done is copied it, and I've asked ChatGPT to analyze this blog post and write a detailed description of the writing style that I can include in future inputs into ChatGPT. And so I used that initial prompt, and then I just pasted the whole entire article below it. And now ChatGPT has kind of given me a very detailed description of the writing style that the company used for that particular article. Well, that's awesome. So now, if I want to write a new blog post, in this case, I've said I want to write a blog post discussing how military service members experience trauma and how it affects the nervous system, et cetera. Whatever details you want to include. And a big thing is I've included the intent. And so the intent of this blog post is to get them to sign up for the 21-day journey. And so I encourage you, when you're using ChatGPT, to also think about what's the intent. If you're using it to write emails, what's the intent of the email? And the output you get from ChatGPT will be stronger and better if you are able to articulate what you want the recipient to actually do. And so in this case, if I go back to, if I copy that writing style over, let's see, where was it? So here's the writing style. I can copy that. Just bear with me as I do my pasting magic here. I messed up. Give me one moment. And copyright. Now this is a long description of a writing style. The personal writing style that I use is actually only about like a paragraph long. But for demonstration purposes, I'm just using what ChatGPT has given me. But I'd say once you have a good description of that writing style, what I do is I just save that onto my desktop and onto my phone on my little notes app. And then whenever I'm writing a new blog post or a new article, I always just paste it over and I say, hey, write in this style, and it will write those emails and blog posts in the style that is consistent across all of my blogs and social media platforms. And so you can see that ChatGPT is working through this now to write that article for me. Now, this is version 4. So up until now, I had been using version 3.5. Version 3.5 is not as smart, but it's fast. And you'll notice that version 4 is slower. So there's a little bit of a trade-off there, which version 4, you're trading speed for, better output and better responses. And then Finally, another kind of highlight is, as this kind of finishes, writing, ChatGPT does a few different things that you need to really be careful of. The first one is, since it was trained on a whole bunch of text, blog posts, social media, there's potential that it was trained on inaccurate or wrong information. So it may tell you something that is wrong because that is what it was trained on. The other thing it does is sometimes it makes up stuff, and the company calls it hallucinating, but essentially, you may ask it for, what's the name of a disease that does XYZ, and it may or may not make up a name for a disease that actually does not exist at all. And so any facts that ChatGPT gives you, you always want to double check against a true reference to make sure that it's factual. I say, like, any fact, like, if you ask it, what's the temperature that water boils, and it tells you 100 degrees Celsius. Well, double check that, because that may or may not be right. But one technique you can do to help with that is, let's say now that it's written this article, this blog post for me, well, I can ask ChatGPT to provide a handful of resources or medical journals supporting this, and only use verified actual references. Now, it may still make up references, but I find that usually if I ask for like actual references, it's usually a little bit better at not making stuff up. And with that said, version 4 is 40% more accurate than version 3.5. So version 3.5 is 40% more likely to make up inaccurate information, whereas version 4 is more likely to give you accurate information. So in this case, it's giving me a few references, and what I would do is I would Google these references to see if they were actually true references. And in this case, it looks like this actually is a book from Amazon, so I would just double check that whatever ChatGPT gives me is accurate. The next example I want to show you, and there was someone, I think the gentleman talking before builds out WordPress sites, so he's probably familiar with bots and how bots are made now. Well, you can use ChatGPT to build out bots, and there's a few different ways to do it. And in the future, Google is also kind of using this technology for its future bots. But you can experiment within ChatGPT building out bots. Like, for example, a few weeks ago, I built a bot in ChatGPT where I said, pretend like you're my Spanish tutor, and help me learn Spanish. And for about 15 minutes, I had a conversation with ChatGPT where it tutored me in Spanish. And it was just like I was talking to a real life tutor. Like, we had a real organic conversation about where we like to travel and the foods we like to eat. And it was really no different than having a tutor that I could text back and forth. Well, in this case, I've asked it to pretend like a mental health bot. I've given it a name, Ava, and I've given it some guidelines to be a mental health, professional, so to speak, to help me through some mental health issues. And you could also, add some guidance in here that you want it to eventually recommend the 21-day journey to me. I didn't do it in this example, but I've kind of built out some general guidance on how to be a mental health bot. And I've also said, hey, like, if any time the client gets suicidal, encourage them to dial the suicide hotline here in the United States. So I kind of just initiated that bot, and then Actually, I'm going to do that again because I want to use version 4 for this one. So I've initiated that bot with kind of this framework. And now I'll begin having a conversation with it as if I was, someone that came to the website and started kind of talking. So you can see that, this bot named Ava is asking me, how are you feeling today? What brings you here? And, I replied in this scenario as if I was a struggling single mother with a child that was autistic. And, I'm just losing my mind. I don't know how to be a single mother with a special needs child. And, from here, you can basically have a conversation with this bot, and this bot provides, really good responses, like, in many cases better than a human would. Um, and so, a few things that I've included is, I think one of the most important things is I've asked it to match the tone and style of the client. So, in the past, when I first started doing this, what I found is that frequently the bot would use a tone that was very formal, like a doctor or something to that effect. But once I said, hey, I want you to match the tone and style of the client, give short responses, ask follow-up questions, it really made the bot, more personal to talk to, because in many cases, it's responding to me in the same way that I talk to it. And so when you can create a bot that responds in the same way you talk to it, it feels much more natural. And if, maybe in the future you'll incorporate something like this in your website. I'm just kind of at this point just showing you like what's in the art of possible. And I'm sure if you are a coder or do websites or anything that effect, you use this, you probably already know that ChatGPT knows code, knows Python, JavaScript, etc. In this case, I've told it to print "Hello World" using Python. If you work in the business side of the house, ChatGPT also knows Excel. So in this case, I've said I have an Excel document with business expenses and client deposits, and I want to do some calculations to figure out the balance remaining for each client case. And ChatGPT will help with giving you the code in Excel to make those calculations for you. Yeah, I think that's about most of the training I have. I'll open up to questions. We have a few more minutes. Any other questions from anyone on the line?
I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I've heard that, and maybe it's not quite to this point yet, but I've heard that potentially it can be trained to copy a writing style. Like I know you mentioned that you can have it identify a writing style and then request it to do that in the future, but currently is there any way to specifically like train it in like the company voice or anything like that?
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of like inputting stuff you've written as a company and just asking it to like write that writing style for you. I'll share. Let me find something here on my desktop. Give me a moment. I'll share with you the writing style that I like it for myself. And so there we go. So I'm an author. I wrote a few books, but I have a marriage book that I work with an editor, right? It's called Alpha Couples. It's on Amazon. But what I did is I picked one chapter of that book that I was particularly proud of, that I felt really embodied my style as an author. And I fed that chapter into ChatGPT and I said, hey, write a description of this writing style that I can use in future versions. And this is the response that it gave me, and I've tweaked it a little bit, but essentially, it's write in a conversational, introspective style, focusing on personal experiences, anecdotes, and reflection. Be open-minded, vulnerable, humble. Again, like really using adjectives to get after the style I want, including right at a grade 9 through 10 grade level, using clear and accessible language that invites the reader to connect with the narrative. And I use this all the time now. I use it for emails. I use it for blog posts. And in this case, I asked it to write a blog post about how we're approaching a pivotal point in history when artificial intelligence will change music forever. And it wrote that blog post for me. So it seems to be. So this is a typical error response you may get sometimes. We're currently processing too many requests. Please try again later. And in that case, I would just try again later. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think you just have to experiment really, and just like, if you're on Facebook long enough and you start getting advertisements about this, it seems like everyone is like, download these power prompts, or this is the best prompt you'll ever get. You won't need any prompts except this one. You can use this one for anything, blah, 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 blah. And I mean, I think it's all like bullshit. They're, good sales tactics, but I think the key is you really just have to experiment and figure out what works best for you. All right. Anything else?
I know that you kind of already covered this, but I just wanted to see if you had any tips for like, for example, Dr. Amy will give a class, and within that class there will be a bunch of guidance, and granted, this is proprietary information. And one of the things we might want to use ChatGPT for is to create like a condensed guide of the pieces of the exercise that she went through. But the transcript of that meeting was like an hour long, and this is not stuff that we can like draw from the internet or ask it to create so do you have any tips or ideas about how you might try to go about utilizing ChatGPT for pieces of that, or
Yeah,
can you chunk it down? Or
so one thing, do you already have transcription software to convert that meeting into text? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've done that, but I've asked it to write meeting minutes for me. So you can ask it, hey, write meeting minutes based upon this meeting. But so I do coaching, I do executive level coaching, and I've experimented using ChatGPT to basically write a summary of our hour-long coaching session. And when I input that hour-long transcript into ChatGPT, I get an error message because it's too long. So usually I have to break it up into like 3 or 4 sections. But I would just break it up into 3 or 4 sections, input it in ChatGPT, and say, hey, summarize this text. And then, the workaround is I'd summarize part 1, summarize part 2, part 3, part 4, and then I have to copy those 4 parts back into ChatGPT and say, okay, now summarize the summary, these summaries, and use it that way. So it's a little bit of a pain in the ass. I've tried to build out an application to like automate that process, which I know you can do, but it's not the easiest thing to do. I don't know if I answered your question, because there's really,
no, that's helpful, because I get that we're trying to just figure out creative ways to work within these limitations. So that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Or if there's like or just if there's like one part of the meeting in particular that's really like the heart of it, or the, main lesson, maybe just, say, hey, write a handout or write a summary on this particular part of this transcript. One thing when I use it to summarize meeting notes with my clients, another technique I use is I asked it, because the meeting transcript has like, speaker A and speaker B. And so I will say, hey, I'm a coach, I'm speaker B, my client is speaker A. Write a summary focusing on the actions or feelings that the client has, and provide me some tips to give the client so that they can work on different areas before our next meeting. And so for my purposes, I kind of specify that down a little bit too, but I digress. I'm off on a tangent.
No, that's really interesting. Yeah, thank you.
All right. So I really appreciated chatting with everyone today. In the chat box, I'm going to put two things. The first is I'm trying to establish myself as a coach. I have a Google My Business page. If you could leave a 5-star Google review at the link in the chat box, I would greatly forever be appreciative of you. That will help me and my business grow in the future. And then the second thing is, if you want to connect, follow up with me, I'll put all my social media posts or social media handles in the chat as well. So you can see my LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all that stuff as well. So, all right. Anything else? All right. Well, John, I will email you a link to the recording once it gets processed in a few hours, and you could download it, use it as you want, share it. It's feel free to use as needed.
Sure. Thank you so much, Robin, for this wonderful training. We've learned a lot on this.
Yeah, my pleasure. Hopefully it was helpful. All right, guys, take care. Have a great day. Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Robert.
Thanks, Robert. Bye.
Thank you.
Take care, guys. Bye.